What's going on, Hats and Stats fam? Welcome back into episode 7 of H-Town Hats and Stats. I am your host, D-Luck. You guys know me from over on Instagram and TikTok at H-Town Hats and Stats. Let's get this kicked off the right way. Today's hat, the 2025 Texans on stage draft fitted. One football team got a huge win this weekend, while the other one fell just a bit short, and we've got a new season tipping off here in H-Town. So let's talk about that in today's scoreboard. Okay, let's get the bad out of the way first. Starting first with our University of Houston Cougar football team. They hosted the Texas Tech Red Raiders on Saturday at TDECU Stadium and unfortunately did suffer their first defeat of the season. Texas Tech moves to 5-0 with a 35-11 defeat of the Coogs. And unfortunately, like I said, first loss of the season, first conference loss of the season for the Coogs as well. We'll see how they bounce back coming up this weekend with a little bit easier of an opponent. Moving to Sunday, we saw an absolute huge football win in Houston. That's right, the Texans go to M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore and defeat the Ravens 44-10. CJ Stroud with his 4 touchdowns and found his new favorite school receivers. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our Tip of the Cap segment coming up next. But lastly, like I said, yes, we do have a new season tipping off here in H-Town. It is time for Rockets basketball. They opened the preseason on Monday night with a 122-113 victory over the Atlanta Hawks. We, of course, didn't see Kevin Durant. I might have gotten a little too anxious to see him in a Rockets uniform. We probably won't see him until the Oklahoma City Thunder game here in a couple weeks as they tip off the regular season. But yes, the Rockets do pick up the 9-point victory for what it's worth. And that does it for our H-Town scoreboard because, of course, there are no baseball games being played here in the city in the month of October for the first time in almost a decade. But that's all right. Let's pick our spirits up and take a look at our players of the week and give them a tip of the cap. Okay, class, I'm going to need you to hold your applause till the end. This might be the longest tip of the cap segment that we've had on the show this far. We're going to start once again talking about CJ Stroud. He had 4 touchdowns against the Baltimore Ravens. That matched his incompletion total on the day. Over his last 2 games against the Titans and the Ravens, in which Titans and Ravens. Sorry, I thought I might have said Texans there. Against the Titans and the Ravens, CJ Stroud has gone 45 of 55 passing for 478 yards with 6 touchdowns and no turnovers. No turnover-worthy plays in general for CJ Stroud. So, for finding a little bit more of his form, CJ Stroud, you, sir, get a tip of the cap. Now, let's talk about who scored those touchdowns from CJ. You had 4 players score their first career touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. Did I get that one right? Yes, I did. Sorry. I knew there was 3. Wasn't sure if I had marked down all 4 of them. That's right. Against the Tennessee Titans, Woody Marks would have a receiving and rushing touchdown to go along with 120 yards. He would see a little bit of a downtick in his snap share against the Ravens, but that's all right. You get a tip of the cap for those first 2 career touchdowns. And in that same game, since we didn't have an episode last week, in that same game, Jaden Higgins, the Iowa State Cyclone rookie wide receiver, caught his first touchdown from CJ Stroud. So Jaden Higgins, tip of the cap for your first career touchdown. Moving on to the most recent Texan game against the Ravens up in Baltimore. That's right, 2 more Iowa State receivers. Jalen Knoll, rookie wide receiver in the same draft class with his fellow Cyclone, Higgins there, this past draft in April. He also scores his first career touchdown, and a tip of the cap goes to him. And I'm actually going to give him a second tip of the cap. That's right, for going into M&T Bank Stadium and imitating the Ray Lewis squirrel dance, whether it was meant as a tribute or a little bit of a shot for scoring on them, especially since that one put the Texans up 41-10. That, to me, deserves a second tip of the cap. And lastly, but certainly not least in this one, he's been developing over the last 3 years with this Texans team. Xavier Hutchinson finally got his first career touchdown, and he liked it so much he went ahead and did it again. That's right, he had 2 touchdowns on the day in Baltimore. So Xavier Hutchinson, a tip of the cap to you on that one. Now let's go to the defensive side of the ball. On this one, you could have picked a number. You could have picked a number of players over these last 2 weeks that could have deserved to have any kind of recognition. But the one I'm sticking with for this week is going to be number 5 on the defense, Jalen Petrie. 2 interceptions of backup quarterback Cooper Rush of the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday to go along with putting Derrick Henry on his wallet with a big-time hit. Of course, the entire defense held Henry to only 33 yards rushing on the day. But Jalen Petrie, for those 2 interceptions and that big hit of Derrick Henry, you, sir, get a tip of the cap. Now, a few weeks ago, we had our Dunce of the Week, and we had some circus music flying around here in Houston. And I named the Texans coaching staff our Dunce of the Week. But they have turned things around, and the entire coaching staff, especially Nick Caley, with the way he's been calling some of these plays over the last few weeks, every Texans coach gets a tip of the cap for finally looking like they are at least competent to get this team back on track. And speaking of that circus music and our Dunce of the Week, that's what's coming right up now. This week, it's not circus music and the calliope playing in the background. It is full-blown Benny Hill music, and it's coming all the way from State Farm Stadium in Arizona. That's right, the Arizona Cardinals are our dunce of the week. Dunces? Dunce-I? I don't know. Dunce of the week belongs to the Arizona Cardinals. And here, this is going to be a bit of a segment. Let's jump right into what happened on the day for them. They were playing against AFC South opponent, AFC South opponent, the Tennessee Titans. Up 21-6 with just over 13 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Amari DiMercato, sorry if I've mispronounced that one, but Amari DiMercato runs for what would be a 72-yard touchdown. But whatever happens with these NFL players in their minds, he decides to drop the ball at the 1-yard line. It rolls out of the back of the end zone. L'Jarius Sneed is right there, points it out to the ref, immediately is called, or they go back and review it just because they call it a scoring play just to make sure. But DiMercato fumbles through the end zone, would have put the Cardinals up 28-6, basically put the game away against a really bad Titans team, but instead the Titans get the ball, go down, and score to make it 21-12. They do not get the 2-point conversion, so it's a 9-point game at this point. Then the Titans get the ball back after, I don't even remember where this whole sequence. It could have been a punt. It could have been the fumble that went off of Kyler Murray's face mask. I mean, he was definitely not ready for the snap. And any other quarterback, it probably hits him directly in the chest. But this one hits Kyler Murray in the head, gives him a little bit of that little knockback there like he was in the middle of a boxing match. He picks it up. The Titans pick it up and go from there. But on the next score for the Tennessee Titans comes on a Cam Ward interception. How, you might ask? That's okay. I'll explain it to you. Let me get this name right as well. Darian Taylor Demerson intercepts Cam Ward on the play, falls down, knocks the ball out of his own hand. 3 or 4 Cardinals players try to grab it, and this is where the full-blown Benny Hill music should be getting even louder at this point. They kick the ball into the end zone, and it is recovered by Tyler Lockett of the Titans. They get the touchdown and the extra point to make it a 2-point game at 21-19. We are still not done. This was more of a traditional blow-it type of play. But on their last drive, the Cardinals run 3 straight run plays that go absolutely nowhere. Yes, it does make Tennessee use their timeouts. Actually, no, it does not. I'm sorry. This was before the 2-minute warning. All 3 run plays before the 2-minute warning. At least take a chance to try to get a first down. No, the Cardinals run the ball into the line 3 consecutive plays, and that is how the Titans get the ball back, and then they are allowed to go 11 plays for 71 yards and kick the game-winning field goal. Why does this qualify other than the absolute sheer stupidity of the play for Dunce of the Week? That's because the Arizona Cardinals handed the Tennessee Titans their first win in 11 tries. That's right, you have to look back to Week 12 of the 2024 season, unfortunately here in Houston, where Will Levis turned into Peyton Manning out of nowhere. But yes, that is the first win for the Tennessee Titans since that November day of the 2024 season. And speaking of the Tennessee Titans, let's move now to our news recap and see what happened in the rest of the AFC South. Time for our news recap. This week, we only have one division to look at. That's right, it is the AFC South. And as I stated in the previous segment, the Tennessee Titans defeated the Arizona Cardinals 22-21, picking up their first victory of the season and moving to 1-4 on the standings board. At the top of the division, you had the Indianapolis Colts hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. And once again, the Colts remain at the top of the division, moving to 4-1 with a 40-6 victory. Daniel Jones continues his resurgence, going 20 of 29 for 212 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. But once again, the story of the day, it belongs to Jonathan Taylor, who is having an offensive player of the year type performance, if it wasn't for Puka Nacua. But he had 17 carries, only 66 yards. But 3 of those carries would end in the end zone for Taylor. 17 carries, 66 yards, and 3 touchdowns is Jonathan Taylor's final stat line on the day. And just behind them will be the Jacksonville Jaguars, who somehow now are also 4-1 after defeating the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football 31-28. The 2 most pivotal plays in this one, the Chiefs were going to score to make it 21-14. Patrick Mahomes throws a really bad interception to Devin Lloyd of the Jags. He returns it 99 yards for the pick 6 to give the Jags the 21-14 lead. There would be a few more back and forth scoring before Trevor Lawrence would have a 1-yard rushing touchdown for the go-ahead score with just under or about 30 seconds or so left in this one. He stumbled, fell down a second time. Chris Jones just completely standing there, does not move, does not even attempt to touch him while he's on the ground. Clock will keep running. Would have been a lot harder for Jacksonville to score in that situation, but Lawrence gets the 1-yard rushing touchdown in the end. So yeah, the standings now look like Jacksonville and Indy tied atop the division at 4-1. The Texans now sitting at 2-3, so still 2 games back, but it is a long season. We are only 5 weeks into this season, and we have seen at least Jacksonville fall apart down the stretch of a season here recently, and we'll see what Daniel Jones can continue to do. And then you have the Titans bringing up the rear of the division, sitting at 1-4. And it's going to be a short Houston Sports Week coming up. Sorry about that. It's going to be a small Houston Sports Week coming up, but let's take a look ahead and see what's going on. Okay, everything in the Houston sports landscape is right there on the horizon for us. It is a small docket of games. The Texans, after their 44-10 defeat of the Ravens, get I wouldn't say a much needed bye week. You probably would have needed it after those first 3 weeks, if we're being honest, but that's okay. The Texans are going to have a bye week before heading out to Seattle for a stupidly late Monday night game in week 7. As for the Rockets, after opening their preseason on Monday, they will have one more home preseason game this week. That is against the Utah Jazz Wednesday at 7 p.m. We'll see probably a lot of rotations, see what kind of movement there is on the point guard line with Reed Shepherd, maybe even some Ben Thompson. Alperen Sengun played quite a bit in the first preseason game. We'll see if more minutes pick up or if they start to actually sit players the closer they get to the regular season. And finally, we have the University of Houston football program back on the field. Another road game after coming back home for the Texas Tech game. They will travel up to, let's see, where is this one? Stillwater. Those little college towns all over the place get me a little mixed up. I almost said Norman. Definitely no, that's not the right one. But yes, they will be taking on the Oklahoma State Cowboys at 11 a.m. this Saturday up in Stillwater, looking to pick up their 5th victory of the season. And like I said, that's it. That's all we have on the table this week, guys. There should be more to come, hopefully, as the Rockets season picks up. And then, of course, Texans and Coogs. Even Coug basketball is just around the corner, so we're going to have to add them to our schedule as well. And now it's time to put on your thinking caps and see how well you did with last week's clues, as well as get ready for another brain buster. Oh, you did. Hey, guys. Nope, don't mind me. Just talking to my friend CJ here. He said he easily got last ones, and he said he doesn't think you guys can get this one with the new clues. But first, let's take a leap back and see what the clues were for last week's thinking cap answer. I'll give you all the clues just like I did 2 weeks ago. Sorry, it was 2 weeks ago. I said Houston felt like home. Houston felt like home. They repossessed an Admiral. That one should have given it away right away. And they didn't look good in purple. Of course, I'm talking about the Dream, Akeem the Dream, Olajuwon. That's right. He said Houston felt like home. Is actually a really interesting story on how he ended up here. Found someone at the airport. Look this one up, guys. This is an awesome story. Found someone at the airport that was from his native land, and he had 3 boarding passes for 3 different colleges and said, which one of these feels the most like home? And the guy said Houston. He came down here, and the rest was history, going to University of Houston and then being drafted number 1 overall by the Rockets. And of course, repossessed an Admiral in the 95 playoffs. David Robinson given the NBA MVP directly in front of 1994 MVP Akeem Olajuwon before one of the Western Conference final games. And Akeem went ahead and just, like I said, repossessed that MVP trophy. Of course, David Robinson still has it, but Akeem got the title at the end of that run. And of course, did not look good in purple. That's right. He finished his career up in Toronto with the Raptors late in his career there. All right, guys. Now it's time to put on your new thinking caps. Is it all clean? Is your hair done? Is your hair done underneath there? Shape up the beard a little bit. All right, good. All right. Get ready. Here it comes. First clue. Feline persuasion. Feline persuasion. Clue number 2, unusual yard line. Unusual yard line. Third and final clue, hopefully this one should be the one to kick it off for you guys. Bronze stiff arm. That's right, bronze stiff arm. Leave it in the comments. Let me know who you guys think this week's thinking cap answer is. Thanks for coming back to see me here on H-Town Hats and Stats with the Wheelhouse Media Company. And I will be back next week. Had a little bit of family sickness last week, but we are back this week. And of course, you guys can follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at H-Town Hats and Stats for more daily posts. And I hope to see you guys right back here next week. Thanks for joining in. Peace. Wait, how could I forget? Go Astros, go Texans, go Rockets, and go Coogs.